solution approach, both the administration and those seeking to succeed it have been making divergent promises on how they will remedy the situation and improve the lot of Nigerians.
My aim is to make sure that Nigerians believe that we respect them as an administration. So Nigerians should vote for whoever they like from whichever party. Nobody will be allowed to mobilize resources and thugs to intimidate people in any constituency. That's what I want to go down into Nigerian history for.
The country is bedeviled by several constraints to effective governance and service delivery, including cost of governance, which is disproportionately high relative to productivity, and poor budgeting index and corruption, which had over the years enriched public officials and impoverished the downtrodden. It is also no longer news that inflation rate in the country has risen to over 21.5% at the end of November 2022, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, with about 133 million Nigerians living below poverty lines. Nigerians want these anomalies sorted out, especially in the areas of security.
All their campaign promises are, I think the paramount one now is security. Because security has crippled this nation to the point where even market women are afraid of going inside the bush to get the foodstuff to bring to the market to sell to people. Insecurity has crippled this nation to the point that it's affecting the economy. In fact, if all the presidential aspirants or anybody who emerge winners can focus on security and bring security to the barest minimum, I think half of the problem of this country will be solved.
Those promises actually sound good to the ear. However, if I have to in order of priority, I'll say security first. Because if you have good educational system, or if this promise of educational system is fulfilled, if there is insecurity, who are those that will enjoy that?
According to 90 Audit Report 2009-2011, Nigeria loses 578.990 billion naira annually to oil theft and suffers huge debt of $5.8 billion liquefied natural gas from NNPC, which has not been paid into the Federation account since 2006.
All Nigerians being affected with the hardship of this country. Nobody is finding it easy in Nigeria. Everybody is passing through difficult situation, difficult move in this country. So it has affected everybody. Every time prices are going higher and higher. When you go and buy something now, you come back, the price has inflated. They add more money to it.
Pretty bad enough. The government is not trying. The present administration is terrible, and as we all know, the government is terrible, and we are not financially prepared, but we are prepared. We can't say we are 100% prepared, but in a way we are prepared.
For them, reforms such as civil service and sectoral reforms, cogent fight against corruption, proper planning and budgeting must be genuinely carried out to enable the country conquer the ravaging lingering poverty status, stunted economic growth and lopsided development. From Abuja, Nabuchi Oke Nabuchi, reporting for Galaxy TV.
You've had the mini feature, and I want to appreciate what Buhari said some few seconds ago, that he wants to be remembered in history as a president who did not use state resources to intimidate his political opponent. And indeed, so far he has been doing it. He does not care any party that comes in. His is that the election should be run very well, and that's what INEC has been doing. And we want to appreciate that. And I hope all political leaders will take a cue from what the president just said. Now, coming back home, in the studio with us is Barrister Jide Ologu. He's not just a lawyer, he's a human resource manager and of course a public relations practitioner. He too has been involved in this issue of democracy and good governance for a long time. to the extent that by the time he starts sparking, vibrating, and parrying, as they say it, you know what I mean. I don't want to say much. Introducing him is, in fact, we spend the whole time introducing him. Let us hear from the horse's mouth. Barrister Ologun.
Thank you.
Welcome to the program.
Welcome to the program.
It's my pleasure to be here. And I must appreciate Galaxy TV and Voters Forum for this highly essential need for any society that is interested in development, which is educating the citizenry, because democracy is participatory, and if you don't get involved, you may not have a valid excuse for complaining. And I must say that from what we are monitoring, a lot of people, more citizens, are getting interested in participatory democracy.
Yes.
And I believe that as we engage today, we try and highlight some issues that will ginger that interest and make it more engaging.
Thank you so much. Let us get cracking immediately. I want to draw something from both the mini feature and, of course, inside the mini feature, where our president said not to use state resources to the advantage of the political opponent. That is a state policy which he has maintained. We know before he came, Obasanjo's era, it was another era, a policy entirely. That his own is that they will all get it. It's state. You see the way the elections were manipulated in favor of a political party. But he has said, no, which you have seen. The second leg is that can state policy now be directed towards tackling insecurity, or do they want to be using lip service? Is a true barrel question, and I know that you are up to the task.
You know, Aesop, a wise man, said, after much is said and done, more is said than done. And I hope that is not the case of Nigeria. Let me pick it from what the citizens were even saying on what we showed earlier. Insecurity is critical. And as a matter of personal opinion, I'm not so impressed by the approach to the insecurity in this country, because one of the issues that prompted me to vote for my president Muhammadu Buhari towards 2015 election was the fact that he was a military head of state, a retired general, an expert in security management. So I was on top of the mountain.
Who fought the son? He fought the son of Boko Haram. That is Metasina.
In the days of Metasina, he really, you know, and he was a man that instilled discipline when he was managing Nigeria with Idi Agbo. So the hopes were high and the promises were made. But unfortunately, even at a point in time, he himself confessed that he came into office inheriting Boko Haram, and that kidnapping and banditry has joined. And there were some political blunders in court that occurred. You know, great nations secure their citizens, secure their borders. They are careful about who comes into their community. I'll use the example of the UAE. The UAE is constantly protecting the citizens. So if they suddenly find people trying to disrupt the peace in the nation, they deal with them decisively. And my president went to Egypt and said immigrants were welcome to Nigeria and to obtain visas on arrival. And we know that that formed part of the base for banditry in this nation. Not just that, some of these elements started coming to Nigeria as a form of exodus. They were registered by the immigration after obtaining the visas. These things are on record. So while some nations within their own polity, and polity, by the way, is a political identity, like a nation, a society, defined, distinct, are trying to bring in highly skilled immigrants, we open our space to perhaps highly dangerous immigrants who do not have blood connection with the citizens. So it was easy for them to slaughter human beings like goats, and of course to influence some citizens who are idle and criminally minded to join in that insecurity. So when you talk about insecurity, I'm sure my president himself may not be happy with his achievements in that area, even though those who package his brand projections try to tell us Nigeria is safer now, and he is still promising that he will deliver a safer Nigeria.
Okay, before I just remember something. Okay. You went into your area of concentration, as you normally say as students. Packaging, that's the work of a PR man. Is that not so? So those are your people working. So something they know is not well, they're packaging it. Can it move? Because we know, in fact, just as everybody knows that insecurity is the key. One will expect that government to even call those who can handle it. To me, it is not insurmountable. It is not insurmountable. And why is this packaging? Because your people want to feed or to enjoy at the detriment of the Nigerian people?
There is a Chinese maxim that you cannot carve a rotten wood. So even when you try to package, you know, if your car has bad plugs, and you think that's the best time to repaint it, and it breaks down on the bridge, and you know the best thing to have done was to change those plugs or buy another bad vehicle or something. And that is the case of Nigeria.
Okay.
You know, we've come to the point where, sadly so, even the government may not be able to defend. The recent statistics that was released by the National Bureau of Statistics, that about 133 million Nigerians are within the multi-dimensional poverty bracket, did not come from opposition. You see, so, and you benchmark that with the promise to improve our economy, you will know a lot is at stake. And for the professionals who are packaging, in public relations, you talk about spinning, you talk about, there are different tools. You see, but when the sun rises, you know and see clearly some things.
When the job will mature.
And I think my position is that the leaders themselves should know the difference between image and reputation.
Good.
Image is the picture you are trying to portray to the world. Reputation is really who you are. So if you even say now that Nigeria is the most prosperous nation in the world, some may buy into it. But a nation with over 20% of inflationary rate, a nation that is owing about 43 trillion naira from 12.12 trillion in 2015, a nation that has about 133 million of her citizens within poverty bracket cannot be the richest country. Potentially, perhaps we are, because we have the largest deposit of proven gas in Africa, the second largest deposit of bitumen in the whole world. So we do not have any excuse to be poor, really. And if you permit me, let me draw a comparison.
Okay.
You look at China, People's Republic of China. Do you know that the accolade and the acceptance of the Chinese democracy is about 90% from the citizens? We have about 1.3 billion citizens enjoy national health insurance. The old age care, about 1 billion. You see, poverty is not a narrative in China. You know, the Commonwealth has been mobilized for the common good of the people. And the democratic system in China has been processed. It's a people-processed engagement that allows citizenry participation through various channels, online participation, to suggest and discuss and recommend to government people-suitable policies. And that is why you find that nation, you know, occupying the space of a giant in the global economy. So, and these are things we need to find. And the conclusion in China, in the leadership maxim, is that the people must be happy, the people must rejoice. That is when you can claim to have a government in place. So, and these are comparisons that we can roll out. I mentioned earlier the case of the UAE. Now, we are about 70 days to the next general elections in Nigeria. And the government, not opposition, told us that they identified about 400 sponsors of terrorism. You see, and none has been prosecuted. My boss in the legal profession is here. That's a huge gap. And the UAE, that is a remote victim of terrorism, in a proactive manner, saying we don't want terrorists in our region and we don't want to create, you know, a citadel for them. identified about 6 sponsors of Boko Haram in Nigeria, prosecuted them, jailed all 6, some to life imprisonment, and some to, I think, about 3 years or so. So when you compare notes, you must ask yourself, what kind of a policy do we have? What kind of a system do we run? And speaking on securing our economy, recently we read about oil theft in Nigeria that has been going on, managed by the high-end profile, obviously. And a vessel was actually arrested, but the vessel was set on fire. And we know that when it comes to the criminal justice ecosystem, investigation is critical.
Yes.
Exhibits are crucial.
Yes.
You know, so what do we do? Destroy exhibits. So are we really fighting corruption? And Section 15 subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended envisaged a healthy polity and introduced a provision that the state shall abolish corrupt practices and abuse of office. So are we really doing that?
Okay, now that brings me to the question. We're talking about policy. Can you actually give us like few of the top political mistakes, policy that is actually a mistake? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Good. In fact, she's a witch. I'm suspecting. She's a witch. How she knows what I want to ask? How they suspect you?
Don't suspect me. It's because of this show.
So, before you go to her question of government policy and so on, if you can just do a definition of policies for us, because some of us know no book as you have. You try and break it down for our people who are watching us. You try and break it down. Sometimes your English, you know, you're a big man, you're a professional, you're a PR man, and so on. Just break your English down so that this is a leveler. This program is a leveler. We're educating the high and the low group of people.
Okay, you know, when you talk about polity, like I said, it's
policy.
Policy are your drawn up plans for implementation. For example, when you say we value education, so as a matter of policy direction, we will commit 35% of our total budget to education. We ensure our academic infrastructures are top notch. We attract lecturers from abroad. We attract grants to support research. We ensure that the students, before they come out of school, jobs are ready for them. You know, that is a policy.
Welfare of lecturers.
Exactly. And you go ahead to implement. And if you look at Section 16 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, there's a policy direction given there, the economic policy, that there should be affordable housing, affordable food, affordable, you know, care for the old, reasonable living minimum wage. In fact, Section 15 says that the government must provide maximum happiness for the people. So policies are
that's why Imo governor the other day
exactly had a commissioner of happiness. So these things are there for your citizens. And I just did a comparison. For the UAE, they have created an environment that attracts wealth. You see, in the wealth management ecosystem, you start by creating local wealth as a form of attraction for foreign wealth. And that's why we talk about foreign direct investment. So right now, what Dubai did, the UAE, because I studied, I watched a documentary. I was going to New York from Abu Dhabi of the founding father of the modern UAE, Sheikh Zayed. Some of the things he did, very amazing, very interesting. It was to be 100 years. I think that must have been 2018.
Yes.
And when they wanted to embark on their agricultural policy ventures, the Western world told them it was not going to be possible. But he told his team that this is our land, this is our project. Let's go ahead and implement. And they made a huge success. Canals were constructed to localities. He said that oil money may not last forever.
Yes.
And that wealth is not even money, but developing people. So investments in education, women, everything. And I can let you know that every time I fly into Dubai,
would that be?
there is something fresh
Yeah.
to amaze you in terms of infrastructure. In fact, there was a time I went there for a marriage, a couples program in the Redeemed Christian Church of God, and I stayed in a four-star hotel or so. And I was to step out, and I saw about 25 Chinese with their cameras. We met at the lift lobby, coming in. And that's one thing about China. China wants to see
Of course, to
great things
understand
around
it.
the world and improve on it.
And put it in their own
Not
place.
only for local enjoyment, but for exportation.
Yes.
And that's why you see them, they are the ones fixing our railway lines, renovating our airports and
Roads.
things like that. And that's what Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore did, the founding father. As soon as Singapore left Malaysia in 1965 as a coastal region with little resources, this man and his team started going around the world to see top brands of Polity and say, what can we learn from them? How can we improve? And between 1965 and now, even though he has died, Singapore has become one of the best places to live and to work in the world. And that is the essence of a developmental policy that wants to keep improving the fortunes of the people. So if you have had that from the time we inaugurated the first refinery in Nigeria, that was 1965 by Shop BP, policy speaking, by now we should have nothing less than 30 refineries, including modular refineries, because we have the raw materials in excess to create wealth for the people. And by now you won't even be discussing about toggery during elections. The elections held in the UK, I didn't read about toggery. There was election in Germany. You know, elections in US, you go to work, you vote.
You and our guest last week, you have the same flow. You'll be talking, and I'm enjoying you.
Exactly.
When I see it, you are going to repeat.
Repeat the class, like you say.
You're not past. We'll call you again to come, but because we're rounding up this segment, why are we having this problem of policy failure? The way you say government have been having policy, why have we been having policy failures?
I want to link it probably with our next discussion, which is that we have not embraced the win-win situation. So we still run an adversarial democracy, so that if APC comes in, we need to pull down everything PDP has done. So if PDP is fortunate to also come in, they pull down. Instead of having a systemic, structure in place, like the United States of America. They know where they are going. I was in Washington, D.C., enjoying the enormous infrastructure, and I saw a billboard that says, "We are still building America." And I asked myself, to where? You're already here. We can see
with the road,
and you are still building.
with the system working.
Exactly. You see, so
They are still building.
in fact, right now,
What will they be doing in Nigeria then?
so
We'll be building too.
so we need,
Yes.
we need to collaborate.
Yes.
Let me say this, and I say it with all sense of respect to stakeholders. I think we are not grateful to God for what He has deposited in Nigeria. Nigeria can sustain the whole of Africa.
Yes.
I did a research. About 40% of the gold and uranium in the world are deposited in Africa. The total population of the world, as at 16th of November 2022, touched 8 billion. You see, and again, as a matter of policy, we read about an accountant general who has bolted with over 80 billion naira.
80
You see,
billion
so these
naira.
are issues of policy.
Wow.
We'll continue.
Wow.
We need to come together.
We will continue.